Alrighty, so here we are. I'm Sangeeta. I'm a newbie stereo photographer, but I've been doing photography for about 10 or 11 years. I got into photography just by way of doing a daily gratitude journal as to what I observed around me and just to, you know, give a little flavor to my very boring lab life, if you will. Stereos have recently added another dimension literally to my photography because they allow me to explore things that I couldn't before, to focus on textures, patterns in much greater detail. And they've allowed me to gain a new appreciation for composition, if you will. So I'll show you some stereos today. And the idea is just to take you along for a little walk with me. And so in doing that, I can show you the different kind of things that I usually tend to photograph. Just a disclaimer, all of these pictures are in parallel format, and I'm not used to projecting them, so please excuse any issues if you may with viewing. So this first picture is of a random leaf that I spotted with some raindrops on it. So I thought these kind of things especially come alive in stereos because normally it's just a leaf, it's just some drops on it. And if we take a mono picture, it's not very obvious, but then you can appreciate the little drops and the beauty of them in 3D a lot more. And the way the leaf curls. So to me, it's very appealing. So when I typically go for a walk, I look for a few familiar faces, mostly non-human, mostly bugs. So if, I am very fond of dragonflies. So I look around and I tend to find a lot of dragonflies everywhere. I think this is the dragonfly season, and the best thing about dragonflies is that they're creatures of habit. They tend to stay put, and they make a very good stereo subject because they don't move around much. So this first picture is of a blue dasher taken in black and white just because of the way it presented itself. So I like the idea of capturing it in black and white, even though it's a very colorful, beautiful insect. This is a blue dasher male, zooming in on its eyes. And you can see in 3D, the pattern and the fluff on the neck becomes all the more vivid, and we can appreciate the details in stereo a lot more than you can in the mono photographs. You can see even the tiniest details, the little fuzz on the limbs of this insect and the little antenna, if you will, near the eye. So I find it very amusing, if you look at dragonflies, they always seem to smile, and that always puts a smile on my face. So they're really good friends to have. And if you zoom in on the eyes, you can see how beautiful their compound eyes are. So this is sort of like derived from a not so zoomed in view. So I cropped it and just tried to look at the eye, and you can see the compound eye, and the detail is so much more vivid than it would be in a mono shot. So this kind of stuff really appeals to me about stereo photography, that combined with the macro medium, it really elevates the whole experience. I also tend to photograph a lot of butterflies, and just it's amazing to see their beauty, their uniqueness, the different patterns. I actually studied butterflies as a part of my PhD thesis. I was working on four-winged insects. So I really appreciate the detail of the patterns and the wings a lot more now. And sometimes when you look around, you see these tiny bugs that you wouldn't otherwise be able to see. But when you zoom on these bugs, you can see like really exquisite patterns that especially stand out in stereos. So this is a Ligas bug, and it has a beautiful heart on its back, and just so amazing to see these kind of details in macro stereo. And this is a stereo of a bee in redbuds. Spring is particularly beautiful where I live, and the redbuds are always in bloom for about like a couple of months, and you see a lot of bees hovering around. And they're very lazy bees, so it's very easy to make a stereo of them. Just to mention, I only do cha-chas. I'm a very new stereo photographer. I do not own a specialized stereo camera or a stereo rig, so all my photos are taken with a phone, with or without a macro lens, and they're all cha-chas. So it can be sometimes difficult to capture the details, and there can be a lot of errors in the images, but I still enjoy the process. I also have other kinds of friends that may seem inanimate, but they are equally beautiful. The trees in and around me. My dad was really big into planting trees, and I've gotten into the habit. So whenever I have a chance, I try to do my best to connect with the tree friends of mine. They have their own unique beauty, and even a tree in autumn can be very beautiful, very gorgeous, especially when you look at them like this. The other thing that really I find intriguing about trees and patterns is the concept of Peridolia. If you look at some structures, sometimes you can see the little faces hiding in them. So this particular tree trunk, to me, it looks like a little puppy, and I really find it tempting to give it a little head scratch. So I find it really amusing to see structures and patterns like this, and they particularly come alive in stereo. The other thing I tend to photograph a lot is flowers, especially the tiny flowers that sometimes maybe not very visible to the naked eye. So this is a little sleepy flower. And you can see the small detail and the venations are very vivid in stereo. This is a macro of a little morning glory. And I like capturing flowers with a little bit of backlighting, just light filtering through it, just gives them a little bit more glow. So that's a favorite style of mine that I did even in my monophotography. And this is a rose with little drops on it. So I think roses are in particular a favorite flower of mine to photograph. And they have a special significance for me because where I work, we have a rose garden, which is planted especially for the patients on campus to enjoy. And the roses are called roses of hope. So this is sort of a personal favorite thing of mine to photograph, these roses of hope. And just another flower, a narcissus flower. I find them very soft and beautiful, and I think stereos do a lot more justice to this kind of flower, capturing even the smallest details and the distinction between the different patterns and the way the flower is organized. The other thing I like to imagine is what would things look to a small creature like a squirrel or a bug. So I tend to look for these small hidden caves in the trees and you know, just to capture the view from a different creature's perspective. So I found these leaves scattered around a little tree cave, and I was wondering, well, what lives inside there? And like, you know, what if a squirrel is coming home at the end of the day, just like I go home, and what would it think? Kind of bizarre, but that's how I tend to imagine. And these kind of imaginations can be especially vivid in stereo. The other favorite of mine is looking at tree textures. Some of my friends here right now can appreciate that. They're also equally addicted to tree bark textures. And I think they especially come alive in stereo. So this picture, if you look at it in mono, does not have the same kind of finesse that you will see if you view it in stereo. You can see the layers and the dimension and the different textures very well in stereo. And this is another one of those perspective shots. This is really a small burrow in a tree that you really cannot see inside with naked eye. So I used a little headlight kind of thing and tried to illuminate and capture this depth inside this little hole in the tree and see what's in there. So this would be some perspective that probably a spider or a little bug would be able to see. So I find these kind of things really fascinating. And I think I'm better able to appreciate them through stereos. Another thing of mine is to look at drops, water drops, because I think they're exquisite. They're able to capture a lot more in them than just like water. So if you move a little bit around a water drop, you can sometimes catch sun flares in them. And I think that makes the whole thing look so beautiful. It's just like, to me, very amusing and inspiring that, you know, it's a star so far away and it's trapped inside a little water drop. And I can see it and appreciate it even more in stereo. And this is just like sunshine with a little bit of nice blurry background. I like capturing these kind of patterns. Another thing with water drops is water drops on spider webs. And in this one, even though this is a very imperfect stereo and the, there's a lot of rivalries here, but I really like these sort of drops hanging around and just floating. And it looks like a little Alice in the Wonderland kind of thing to me. So I just like to sometimes walk around, look at things, observe and reflect just for fun. And when you get tired, you sit down somewhere quiet and beautiful, read a book, soak in the sunshine. And I simply love the evening golden hour light. There's nothing like it to refresh your soul. So this is another motif that I tend to photograph quite a bit, the golden hour light, and especially places where people normally tend to sit, and it just like sort of capturing a spot of reflection and relaxation. This one is a favorite of mine. I like this sort of beam me up Scotty kind of view. I think this is pretty interesting, the way sunshine becomes almost, heavenly in stereo. This image I really like, even though it's not perfect, but something about it moves me a lot. And I'm very happy that I took this. And then I like scenes like this, where this is a vignette from a local park. These places used to be all busy, all occupied. People would sit here and eat and drink, during normal times, and now it's all empty. And then the little note on the table says to donate for the upkeep of the park because it's not currently being maintained. So these are the signs of our times, but the light is still shining, it's still beautiful, and we can still enjoy as much as we can. So that's that. And sometimes you just look up and you see the sky turning colors, and it's the most beautiful thing to watch. And I love capturing the sunsets and the silhouettes of the tree against it. So these are a few of the things that I tend to photograph. And I hope you've enjoyed walking with me on this little stereo excursion. So thank you. Sometimes you look at the sky and you see Mother Nature's heart opening up for you, and you feel thankful, and you just feel grateful that you are able to enjoy things through your photographic lens. So thank you for looking at these pictures with me. I'm new, so please excuse any mistakes. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sangeeta. Those were beautiful. I've been crossing my eyes the whole time because I did not equip myself for this properly, but even still, they were just coming across really great for me. So
I apologize. I tried to put both parallel and cross eyes together, and it looked kind of very distressful to my eyes. My eyes were dancing all over the place with both parallel and cross together in one slide. So I thought probably it's a better idea to just stick with parallel, because at least people can grab a lorgnette or something and view them. But it wasn't much of a visual distress to people. I apologize if anybody suffered.
No, it was fine. They were beautiful, and just to plug her even more, if you're not following her beautiful photos on Instagram, you are missing out. So just what she does with raindrops is amazing. So
thank you so much.
Can I ask you some question?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
I like very much those types of photos, because you look for details that usually we don't see at with a free A. So what I think you should get, I think 3D, the size is important. So I think you should use big images to enjoy better the depth of the stereoscopy. I don't think if you use anaglyph, format. It has some problems with respect to side by side, but it's a very good way to see big images in 3D. What do you think about that?
So the reason I kept these small was because of one reason alone. These are taken exclusively for the purpose of Instagram. So the baseline is larger than usual. And if we project them on a bigger screen, I believe it would have shot people's eyes and I would have a lot of angry friends around me. So that's why I try to keep them a little bit on the smaller side here.
I see there's a question here from Cindy. Do you use an external macro lens attachment on your phone, or are images created with zooming in?
I do both depending on the subject. I do have a small macro adapter that actually has been very helpful. There's a bunch of them. I can send you the link through DMs on Instagram. I find them very, very useful because you can photograph a lot of stuff on the go. I do have a dedicated macro lens and instead of I wouldn't be caught there walking around with it on a daily basis. It's just simply too heavy. And so this really is helpful. You know, like if you find a beautiful dragonfly, you cannot be scratching your head like, hey, where's my macro lens? And by the time you're trying to focus, let alone in stereo, like you cannot even capture a decent mono, you know, it can be a problem. So this really is very helpful and handy setup.
Thank you.
I really appreciated, especially the insect photography. I love that. You know, I've always loved insects, and you did a beautiful job with this. I was wondering, do you post your work anywhere other than Instagram for those of us who are, you know, afraid to use Mark Zuckerberg products?
Pardon? I didn't catch your question.
Oh, do you post your work like on a website or someplace other than Instagram?
Not at the moment, no, unfortunately.
I am seeing here in the chat that Pascal said that she's written a great tutorial about taking macros, and there's a link there. So
thank you, Pascal. He's been very nice to have asked me. I mean, it's just a beginner's perspective. I learned a lot by just trial and error, trying to find out how things would work for me. And so I just try to put it down in words, and I'm hoping it's of some use to someone.